All right. I will call to order the Yamhill County Board of Commissioners formal session for July 25th, 2024. It is 10 o'clock in the morning. And welcome County Council. We can
Good
see.
morning.
Morning, and we can hear you.
Great.
And Commissioner Sterrett, would you please lead us in the flag salute?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, item C is our calendar session. Do we usually notice the fair? I don't know if we do or not.
Yes.
The fairs, so we need to add the fair every day next week since we'll all be there. Other than that, is there anything to add?
Newbury, and there's a new one starting this year, Amity Parade.
Amity. Same time.
Yep.
We'll have to clone ourselves.
And Dayton. Dayton Friday.
is
Newburgh and Amity Saturday.
Friday night at 7, right?
Mhm.
So Friday night at 7 is the Dayton Parade. All righty. Anything else?
Yeah, the other item, Christian mentioned the need for an executive session, scheduling an executive session possibly for Tuesday.
Yeah, that's right. And I just heard from the sheriff, one of them would be to discuss bargaining, and he and Brandon would be available between 9 a.m. and 2 p.m. on Tuesday, if there was a time in there that worked for the board. There is another topic as well to discuss some pending litigation. So there would be potentially two topics for Tuesday.
Okay.
So 9 a.m. we have a Bridge Street meeting. So we either need to move that.
I just confirmed it.
Yeah, I did too.
Can we do 10 to 12? 10 to 11?
I think that'd be reasonable. I just need to be able to get from Public Works back down to here. So
10 o'clock?
yep,
Okay,
that works for me.
10 o'clock.
And this is Tuesday, the 30th.
And it could be done in person, or it could also be done virtually if that worked easier for commissioners' schedules.
In person's fine for me, whatever. I'll
Okay.
just Public Works. So
I'll be heading to Salem, but I can probably come in here and then head down there.
All right. So Tuesday, July 30th at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Perfect. Thank you.
And we said an hour, right?
I think an hour should be sufficient. Commissioner Sterrett, I don't know what time you're expected in Salem. If we run a little bit long, it might go till 11:30, but I would hope an hour would be sufficient.
That's fine.
All right. Anything else? No. All right. So we are moving on to public comment. This time period is reserved for public comment on any topic other than an agenda item, a quasi judicial land use matter, or a topic scheduled for a public hearing. And so I will call for public comment from the audience, or if you're online, please raise your virtual hand. Okay, seeing, hearing none, we will move on to our department update. And we are joined today by our fair director, Gary Wirtz. Welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning.
First of all, since I don't know if all, I'd like to introduce Grace Adams. Grace, who was an ambassador in 2019. She's a student at Oklahoma State. She's been working with us part-time remotely from school, and in January, she'll join the staff out there at the fairgrounds.
Great. And you've been
Uh,
doing marketing, communication, all that kind of stuff.
Marketing,
Good stuff.
communication, and quite a few other jobs she just doesn't know about yet.
Yeah.
We've got you signed up.
All right, so it's 6 days to fair. And this is gonna be the 170th anniversary of the first fair that was held in Lafayette. So we're pretty proud of that fact, and we're pretty proud of the fact that we're the oldest fair in Oregon. So we are gonna have a great show this year. Hopefully the weather's sounded pretty good at this point, but we've got, our lineup is, Olivia Harms and Terry Clark on Wednesday, Drake Milligan and 49 Winchester on Thursday. Friday night, it's gonna bring Sir Mix-a-Lot. Town is going nuts over that one. And then
Plug your ears, Mary.
the Saturday night is Smash Mouth. So I've had a lot of comments about that. And I'm pleased right now, because the tendency is that we will probably, in our golden circle, which is our reserve seats, we'll probably be sold out 3 nights out of the 4.
Nice.
And the chance the 4th one is going to be at least 3/4 full. So that's.
What night is that?
The
one that
Saturday
would be
night.
possible partial.
Partial Saturday night, but usually Saturday night takes care of itself.
Mm.
Yeah.
Just because it's Saturday night.
Mm.
And that's why we have rock and roll and all that. So, we design it that way. We have a couple big things. It's kind of the buzz of the town. I just heard, I happened to go to my cardiologist the other day, and he was talking to me about, the EMTs are all arguing about being in the hot dog eating contest. So we're having a hot dog eating contest, something that has been done since, I think back in 2018 or 2017, we had one. And so we decided to bring that back. Does sound fun. We're also having a pie eating contest. Blue Raven pies out of Amity. We're helping with that one. So we're gonna get the old standards back into the fair
You can't.
again. It's gonna be fun.
I wouldn't do the pie eating because it's probably cherry pie anyway. No
Berry.
thanks.
Would you like to judge the hot dog eating contest?
No.
Okay.
Monster cookie. You have monster
I
cookie.
have monster cookie.
So then our other one is, we have the barbecue contest. It's on Saturday. And we were fortunate this year that, we have a sponsor who donated a grill. It's a company called MAK, M-A-K Grills. They're made in Dallas. Their cheapest pellets grill is generally about, $2,500. Most expensive one's
Wow.
probably about $12,000. And they sell them all across the United States. Well, they want to get them. There isn't too many barbecue contests around, so they wanted to get involved. So they donated a grill as grand prize for that contest.
I'll be a
So
judge for that.
Yeah.
everybody wants. to
Everybody
judge.
volunteer.
Yeah, one we don't have too much trouble with. The other thing is talent contests this year. We're kind of fortunate. It's got a kind of a new twist. The winner of that goes to the state fair. At the state fair, they will be judged, and then the winner at the state fair has a chance to enter the American Idol. So we're listed as an American Idol talent contest.
Wow.
So I thought that was kind of neat how that all came about.
Yeah.
The other thing, fairs, a lot of fairs picked up through the years, so they picked up what they're calling farm to fork and education campaign. And we've done that. That's our bounty of the county. So we're gonna have all sorts of things that are grown in the Yamhill County, past and present, from hazelnuts to wool to,
Nursery.
yeah, trees, everything. We're gonna have all that, and we have some deals that set up that will tell you, at one time Yamhill County used to have, 45 to 50 dairies. That type of stuff. So what, one of the largest producers of vegetables was out of date, and that was Alderman Farms. And they provided for the war effort. So those are things that a lot of people don't know. Turkey capital of the world. Walnut City, that type of stuff. So we're gonna bring all that out, bring that back to the public so that, a lot of the new people could see, the history and then how something goes from the farm to the fork type deal. We have a lot going on at the fair. That's by design. That gives the public something, to come into, spend some time there. Enjoy it. The family, it's still a family affordable event. You get rodeo, 3 nights of rodeo, a night of destruction derby. You got mutton busting, you got, all these things going on all the time, so that when the public comes in, it's a far, they can spend time, enjoy themselves, and it makes me proud that we were able to do that for them, that we will have a huge fair this year. So probably more than what the grounds can take. I know we have people are rediscovering the fairgrounds, and I wanted to mention this because I was doing a booth at Brews and Barbecues, talking about the fair, and trying to sell some tickets, and had a couple that had moved here from San Diego, been here for 3 years, didn't know what a fair was. When I told them about the county fair, they said they bought tickets. And their reason behind it was that where they come from, fairs weren't fairs anymore, they were expos. And they didn't like the expos, they wanted a county fair.
Yeah.
That's what they want to see, and that's what we're gonna give them. So even if we get bigger, we are still gonna be a county fair no matter what. So otherwise, that's about it. Ticket sales, like I said, are really climbing. One that's surprising right now is, as of yesterday, we'd sold almost 200 carnival ride bracelets, which is beyond what we've done in the past.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I'm kind of stoked. I think if the weather holds out, we'll be fine.
Is there pre-sale on those ride bracelets?
Mhm.
What is the price if you pre-buy
$30
versus 40?
40, save $10. But the ride bracelets get you all the rides, and just 2 games on there. But I think it's good value.
Yeah.
For anywhere else you go. I mean, we were just at Marion Counties, and it was $50 for a ride bracelet over there. So I think we're pretty, it's easy for people to come there. Otherwise, you guys have any questions?
Well, the signs around the county look fantastic.
Yes.
That's a great idea. And then I was watching the president's speech last night, and on the commercials came one of our commercials. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've never seen that before. That's amazing. So when did those start running?
They started running about a week ago. Kind of hold off. So people don't tune it out if they see them on and on all the time. So we have a deal with a Comcast where they're broadcasting it from Washington County to into Marion County,
Wow.
Polk County.
Okay.
So, and we've got different channels that we have that on, and it's been the state fair has used it for a couple of years, and it's been a good positive. Fortunately, our old mediums that we used to get out it just are not working.
Yeah.
So we're having to change up a lot of things. Just Capitol Press is one of them. They have a huge web-based
Yeah.
that
email.
uses emails and stuff. So
Okay.
that's one of them,
Yeah.
one of the many ones that we're, pushing now, but
Well, you captured all the political nerds that were watching the speech last night, so.
yeah, there's actually two of those and then two shorter ones, so.
Yeah,
that are,
it was great.
Nice.
It's good to see.
good,
Yeah, in every parade, we're passing out postcards.
Yeah.
yeah.
So I think that's going well.
Postcards are
interactions
doing
seem
better
to
than what
be-
we did last year.
Yeah,
I've got a big box. We got like 4,000 more, so.
we'll
Yeah.
probably need them.
For Newburgh.
Newburgh's gonna
Yeah.
be huge.
So one of their advertising meetings is the little talk today booklet. And there's a company that goes out and they pick up advertisers and then they put everything in there. It replaces the old fair books from years ago.
Mhm.
While we still do a fair book for just the competitors, this one goes in and does it for everything, the schedules, and schedules change,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
it's there's about, I know Yamhill County or Polk County, us, and I think Lynn County's using them to do that, just to get that out. And they mail them out to the consumers. So.
And we have opening ceremonies this year
yes,
is new.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I've got so many things going on in my mind right now, I'm trying to remember
Understandable.
to do, and then I'm blank up. But so Wednesday, we're gonna do something that we haven't done in years. In fact, the last time I can find any record of it was about 1965. Having an opening day ceremony where you cut a ribbon to go in. So we wanted, so for the 170th, I wanted to do that. Get that started again. So we'll have at 10 o'clock, be at the main entrance of the fairgrounds. We'll have a little ceremony there and then we'll open the fair.
Mhm.
So I thought it'd be kind of fun,
Nice.
do that.
Yeah.
Put our flags up.
So thank you for reminding me.
Thanks very much.
Otherwise,
All right. Any more questions? Well, Godspeed in preparing and
Yeah.
we're looking forward to it and we'll be camped out there for most of next
Yep.
week. So.
Yep. So, yeah, if you have fun. I mean, I'm really thinking this is gonna be a big fair.
It
Yeah.
is. Yep.
I do
And
too.
so
We're
we're
looking
working
forward
on
to
it.
it.
Thanks for your work.
Thank you all.
You.
Thanks for the tumbler.
Yes.
Yes.
For the swag.
That's really cool.
Is this hot stuff too? or
I think
just
so.
cold? Is it?
Either
I don't know.
hot tea. Okay, so that concludes our department update. Item F is our work session. And we have a work session that was scheduled last week, which is discussion of our economic development competitive grant program. Continued from July 18th, 2024, and we are joined by our Economic Development Director, Joya Goodrum. Welcome, Joya.
Thank you. Good morning. And County Council is here as well, if you have questions. for
And
him.
County Council. So Commissioners, we, after discussion last week, there seemed to be a bit of heartburn over, the grant process in general for this particular type of grant. And what we've done in the past. And then I think just a need to review our overarching policy around what we're going to do with lottery funds. And so Joy has done a bit of research. Why don't we start there
Okay.
in terms
sure.
of the policy side? And then I think that we can shift into a discussion about this year.
So in the document that is in your packet, I did go through to see what information we did have. I included for you ORS 461.540 as well as ORS 461.512. The first one, 540, is Administrative Services Economic Development Fund. So that's basically how the state does that. And then the second part is the management of lottery monies received by county. So that's the funds that they give us. From the lottery, from the statute rather, you can see that the economic development uses are quite broad. And I did have a conversation with the Department of Administrative Services, DAS, to inquire because they are who sends us the funds. And then on an annual basis, we send a report to them. And when I had a conversation with the contact that I spoke with, she basically said that the statute outlines the proper use of funds, which once again is very broad. She did not want to tell me exactly what funds could be used for. She said, you have to read the statute. And so you've got a copy of that. Like I mentioned, we have a required report that we sent to them in October. And according to DAS, that's all they ask of us to do. And I did also chat with our financial services manager regarding the audits of lottery funds to make sure to just understand how we are audited by the use of those funds. And I was told that the auditors don't actually audit the lottery funds. They have not historically done that. And so I don't know if it'll come up again, but historically they have not done that.
Yeah, it's not something that we've necessarily called out in the scope of work for our auditors specifically. That doesn't mean when our auditors come in, it's up to them. They could, they draw funds, to look at specific funds on how we're using it on restricted funds. So it could come up in a draw, or it could come up if we included that as part of the specific scope of work for the auditors.
Thank you, Ken. So that's a little bit of the history. And then, do you want to talk a little bit about the grant history as well? Or do you want me to move on to the next piece about basically the history of our competitive grants?
I'm very familiar with it. Commissioner Starrett probably is. Are you okay? Or do you?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
Okay, great. Okay, so no history then that because we know that.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So you all know that the county suspended doing the awarding of the economic development grants in 2019 was the last time we've done that. And then 2024 was the first time we've come back since that. So a little bit more about what economic development programs in Oregon and other counties and what they're doing. So I've got a list of, I just pulled, I don't know, 4 or 5 different county economic development plans. I just went to their websites and pulled some information. And you can see from the list here that they've funded CTE education at local community college, for example, for internships, tuitions and fees, technology tools and uniforms, and actually paid for childcare for students that were participating in their programs. Funding small businesses for job creation in traded sector, natural resources or tourism industries, for example, capital improvements, processing equipment, workforce development and tourism development and management, and marketing. Community projects for municipalities or incorporated areas of the county to increase the livability and safety within the communities. For example, facade improvements on buildings in particular areas that are unincorporated or in municipalities. So giving the money to a municipality for that. And also feasibility studies. Business development grants to encourage investment in equipment or upgrades to industrial property, resulting in job creation and manufacturing. For example, capital improvements, equipment and technology to expand capacity or functionality. Creation of small business support network that include chambers of commerce and other business support organizations which provide support to small businesses. So in some instances, they're actually giving money to the local associations that support businesses in providing educational opportunities and things like that. And I think I mentioned that in the next one. Grants to partner business support organizations to support small businesses, for example, providing access to capital, technical assistance, education, and networking. And then to support workforce development through grants to workforce organizations, for example, training opportunities for youth and adults, summer youth programs, and internships. And this is not an exhausted list. There's so many other things. There's actually a link on the DAS website that will tell you all of the different projects, water and sewer projects, educational projects, and things like that, that I did not get to in this list here. And lastly, there's copies of the ORS statute for both management and distribution of economic development monies.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Helpful.
Commissioners, any questions on the more technical information that Joya
Yeah.
came forward with? Okay. I want to make sure that you get through your whole presentation. Did you have more that you wanted to present now or just wait for
What is
discussion?
here is what is
Okay,
given you. I
okay.
don't know if you want to talk about the grants that we have, where we are, you know, the list or anything like that. We've had a conversation about that in the past, but I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, so one of the goals of today is to discuss our sort of broader policy, the board's policy around what we want to do with this money. It is available every year. We have not gone through this process since 2019, in part because we had CARES and ARPA money that was flowing freely. And you can only do so much, right? So I think going forward, though, we need to have a more clear understanding of the goals of this money and where it should be used. And there's been heartburn over not just being in a position where we're picking winners and losers in terms of our private sector businesses or nonprofits, but you know, there's only a certain percentage of folks in the county that actually are made aware of the grants and apply. And the list that we have now, I think 90% of them have received funds in the past, if you go through and look at who's received funding. So I feel like we're reaching a saturation point. And we have a significant number of businesses in this county that are agricultural related that are not ever going to ask for government money. They do not want to be part of it. They don't want us to be part of their business, and they're just not ever going to show up. And so I think perhaps that's why we're sort of feeling some hesitation this year, because we are seeing those saturation points come forward. And I think perhaps there's a better way where we always talk about biggest bang for the buck. I think there might be a better way for us to do this where we can look back and say, you know, when we funded like the CTEC building, Barbara Roberts CTEC, we knew that was biggest bang for the buck. That was the West Valley. It's a pipeline of kids going into workforce needs for various different sectors. So it felt like a really good investment for us to be a part of. And then you had other major partners coming in. When I look back and I look at like the water and sewer, the city grants that we did, I didn't hesitate. Every single one of those projects were critical. And if they're not being funded by a grant, they're, you know, being funded elsewhere, or there's no funding, right? Some cities just don't have access to the funding. So some of those things that we've done felt really good. Like this is definitely biggest bang for the buck. We are partnering and this money is going to be put to good use. Some of the other ones we've done, like the nonprofit ARPA stuff, there was a lot of push and pull over that. We had the same type of situation and environment where you had the same players coming forward. And ultimately we had to sort of retool it and apply a lens of focus on families. That's literally what we called it, focus on families, to make sure that we felt good about where the money was going. And it was going to have the biggest bang for the buck, and it was going to go to nonprofits that we knew, because we are in the community and we see this, that are actually delivering frontline services. So that's a lot of work. That's a lot of push and pull that we've done over the past several years. And I'm hoping that we can get to something that maybe is a bit more streamlined, that the board feels good about in terms of where we're sending this money, so that we don't have to go through this every single year. Because it is one of the most awkward things that we do, is sit here and look at a list of businesses and decide who gets money and who doesn't. It just doesn't feel like the proper role of government, in my opinion. And so I would be on board with either focusing money on, if it's going to be workforce, if that's going to be sort of our focus, then we look at funding things like the CTEC building or some other type of CTEC program. If it's going to be water, city water and sewer infrastructure, because that does directly relate to economic development and growth and housing, and the sort of the supports of our economic environment, then maybe that's our focus, right? And so instead of doing this whole rigmarole of grants process, we just say, we're going to focus our ED money on these supports that we feel are critical, but it's also sort of a bigger bang for your buck, if that makes sense. That would be the direction I would be more comfortable going in. It still will require a decision-making process in terms of who gets the money. But when I look back, those are the grants that I felt the best about, because they really were focused on kind of those fundamentals of the economic condition here in Yamhill County. And I'm not really suggesting that for now yet. I just want to sort of, on a policy level, that's sort of where I'm going for policy wise on this the lottery money. Any thoughts? Response?
There's a couple little things, a couple points. I don't think the dollar amount's there to really focus on water and sewer, even though I would love to do that. And I think it's a great thing. It's just the dollar amount's not there, because you're talking millions of dollars for some of these projects and you're going to give them 25 grand. I don't think it's enough to actually help. And as we're discussing this, my biggest thing will be, no matter where we end up, is the reoccurring names and businesses that we see. Whatever we end up with, I just want there to be a different rating process for somebody that's already received a grant. I don't want them to go away. I just want them to be rated differently so that some of these other companies have a chance to float to the top.
Yeah, I mean, I think the concern though is that even with this current rating process, you have some of these applicants that didn't float to the top, if you will. And there's reasons for that. And
Yeah.
then you couple it with, somebody's already received money, and it's like, it just is.
I went through some of these and I can see myself in some of these, where I'm trying to do it by myself. I want to do it by myself. I don't have the knowledge to fill out the million government questions that are on it. So I'm trying my best to do it. And maybe it's my first stab at it and I'm going to tweak for my next one. But some of these lower scoring ones, I see myself in these, and I don't want that to be discounted, but I believe some of these will float to the top if immediately I can get rid of some that seem to be experts at this that keep coming. I see a lot of names that I've seen 3 or 4 different times come up here, whether they're hiring somebody to write them or they're just really good at writing themselves. I think we can start getting into some of these that probably are very well deserving, but they're getting scored low just because of the stipulations we put on it. If that's the
honestly
direction
don't.
we're gonna, head, if we're gonna still be scoring it ourselves, I'm still open to other ideas.
Yeah, I hear you about the water sewer infrastructure. I think maybe, because that's kind of what we set up for the Hampton SIP program, is that extra fund is intended to focus on Willamina sort of city infrastructure needs that then in turn promotes economic development. So, and that's not a huge fund either. I think we were estimating about $100,000 a year. So it could be where we just simply, you know, rotate or take requests from cities and we just make a decision and fund one at a time. Maybe that's the route we go. The other idea that some counties do is they give this money to the chambers, the local chambers. And, you know, the local chambers are more connected to sort of the day-to-day Main Street businesses and their needs and what they're seeing. That's an option too. But yeah, when you start getting into the weeds of, well, this person doesn't typically fill out a grant form for government, so they didn't answer the questions well. I mean, I don't think that's the proper role of what we're doing here.
I was looking at some of the stipulations and the parameters of these, and talks about workforce development. And I think one of the clearest examples of one that is successful is when we gave the childcare dollars to Chemeketa to form a cohort, which would actually pay people through an internship program throughout the 14-week process, get them through that. And they would immediately be available to enter the workforce in a very critically short, we just don't have a lot of staffing for childcare. In addition, it puts them on track to move on to get an associate's degree in early childhood development. We have, I believe, a full cohort.
I believe it's a full cohort. I have not spoken with Chemeketa recently, so I can check in on that and let you know.
So
But I
when,
know they were looking to fill it.
right, when people were given the opportunity, the pathway, not only to the employment, but also to continuing education in this field, it was very successful. So I look at that, and I also look, when you talk about workforce development, the CTE program, Barbara Roberts is, I mean, if that thing flies, it will be epic. There will be amazing, you know, the fire science, childcare, all of the variety of different things that are specifically needed. Well, just try to fill the ENT requirements in our county, and it's getting dire. So I look at that, and I also look at programs, as you mentioned, Chair, that would never, excuse me, come and ask for government money, specifically because they're concerned about what government funds, government controls. So I look at the mission. The mission is very effective in taking people who are chronically unemployed, chronically homeless, and getting them through the process of getting back on their feet and into a job training program, which we have funded several of those in the past, including a foreclosed property that gave them a house they can actually train people in. It will be a job training center. So I look at that. I look at another organization called Love Inc. in Newburgh. If you look at what their programs entail, they would never ask for money, but they require people who've never had jobs, never had any stability, to go through a rigorous financial, housing, a whole variety of different programs so that they become employable. Those are the types of things that you're going to get people going to work that would never go to work if they didn't have somebody holding their hand and getting them through the process. So I look at folks like the Mission, Love Inc., the Chemeketa program, and I think that is a way to get people employed. Those to me are important. The infrastructure things are, I believe, are also important, but again, it's the dollar figure. What I'm concerned about is, and I always look at these grants with, as you mentioned, Commissioner, you have folks that are very, very familiar with how to do the government grants. They have somebody doing their grants for them, and they know what answers to give. And you have the smaller businesses who've never done it, so they're not as adept at stating their, you know, making a case for them getting the money. I also think that if you look at nonprofits who are used to getting funding from other sources, the big players get money from a lot of people, and they know how to do it, and they're going to get money somewhere else. I don't know that they need our contribution. And I also know if anybody's gotten money in the past, they should not be part of the discussion at this point. There are just way too many people. I look at the food trucks and the smaller restaurants. We tried this during COVID when we wanted to pay for people's license registrations, which we did. And those are the types of things I think we can do. How do we shore up our businesses to keep them open? So I'm looking at this from our job retention, but I also know that it's really hard to take a look at some of these businesses and say, how do you pick and choose?
Yeah, I also think about our relationship and partnership with Willamette Workforce Partnership, and they do some amazing things, have some amazing programs that they have all sorts of cross pollination with the trades and the agricultural sectors. We have it was fairly successful youth wage program through them where, farmers could hire youth and be reimbursed on a percentage of the hourly wage. And so, those types of programs, if we choose to fund them more, they can only grow and be bigger and help more businesses here in the county. So, there's a lot of options where I feel like we could be sending $125,000 and really get a bigger bang for our buck where it feels like we're helping multiple different sectors. We're helping with the workforce issues. We're helping alleviate burdens on our businesses rather than going through this whole process and just not feeling great about it because we have, 90% of folks on the list who've already received funds.
See, I'm not hung up on that. I guess I don't have a problem making a stipulation that if you've come to the well before, you're gonna go, your rating is gonna go down to get some more of these to float up. I think the biggest concern for me here is we're talking dollar amounts that this actually fits better to where you can, most of these people on here would be ecstatic to get what they're asking for, and it will help them immensely.
Right.
Versus us taking the 125 grand and go and doing one thing. Number one, for a program that probably Workforce Partnership is already in, and then they can do it, or there's funding out, different funding sources that can go do those higher dollar amount ones. The way this is set up, if we can just tweak how we're rating them, I am okay how we have it now, as long as we can just kind of take care of the, hey, you've gotten one before, you obviously know how to write grants very, very well. Let's see if we can focus on some of these lower scoring ones. Maybe there's reach out, maybe the committee has, maybe they do follow-up phone calls with you. Hey, I see that you filled out this one section. If you tweak this a little bit, can I maybe help them with their applications? I don't know. I
Mhm.
don't mind this coming before us how it is, even though it's a recommendation, and tweaking it just a little bit. I don't feel bad about that.
How do you feel about the process where you have a review committee prior to it coming to the commissioners? Because initially it was the commissioners who did everything from the beginning, applications on.
I love the review committee.
And who's on the review committee, because that is.
I like how everything gets funneled through one point, which is Joya.
But
And as we progress here, and I don't know that it's not well known that at every point that whether it's review committee, and some of these applications got reviewed by just different people, not all by the whole committee. That's a recommendation. It gets to Joya. Joya reviews it. It's another recommendation. It becomes before us as a recommendation. There's no reason why I believe we can't change it as our recommendation, even though we're final approval for it. I don't see that as something being concrete from the very beginning and then us changing it as a bad thing. So. And again, the dollar amounts that we're talking about, I think this is a perfect fit. You have somebody asking $25,000 for a packaging machine. That's great. That will go so far for that company, versus us trying to take 125 grand and go do an $8 million sewer project or water line, or even though those are great things, I think with the dollar amounts we're working with, it fits better with what we have.
I'd also like to see us do a little more outreach to the organizations that are less likely to ask for money, but that are producing results when it comes to workforce development of some folks that are difficult to employ, because that's not an easy task, and they're doing it, and they are the nonprofits.
So you mean the mission and,
Mission and Loving,
Mhm.
just that come to my mind.
Yeah.
And maybe follow-ups.
Mhm.
Let's say we proceed forward with how we have this list, we tweak it a little bit. Maybe it's a 3-month follow-up where one of the commissioners rotates through for each one of these, or we each take a few and we go see what they did with their money. Number one is just an outreach effort to, hey, we care. We're here. Let's see what you got going on. And number two, just as a checkup to make sure that our monies are being spent kind of how we believe they should be done. That last go round, I can't remember the name of the grant process that we did a year ago, but I've never had an update on that. Of all that,
ARPA money.
yeah, the ARPA funds that went out to multiple different businesses. I'd love to know, how they're doing now, how those funds went, how it helped them.
Well, in the past, we had, as I've mentioned, no follow-up ever. And some concerning, folks who got significant amounts of money, and then we heard via the grapevine that they were no longer in business, and we had written them checks. And those are the types of things that are concerning to me, because it might look good on paper, and you don't have any control over what they do going forward, but there were some grants that looked like this was just as you said. I mean, one particular company was looking for a commercial kitchen upgrade and had a contract with Whole Foods. We gave the money, and before you knew it, there was something on Facebook that someone showed me that business was no longer operational, and the owner was looking for a job or had taken a job, and I thought, well, there's our money that just was wasted.
Right. Yeah, I don't know if you're going to be able to outguess that, but at least start having, I guess, a little bit better follow-up on.
So in the process, in 6 months, whoever receives funding will be contacted. They're actually going to get an email. I want to say it's the beginning of November. So it'll be about won't be 6 months. And so they'll get notified twice during the year to respond back to a questionnaire, or at least tell us where their progress is with regard to that, the funding that they have received. So we will be doing a follow-up with them, and it is already calendared on my calendar, and I will be doing that.
But not like a true, at least to me,
Mhm.
in person, on site, touch and feel the equipment,
Mhm.
let's see how the labor hiring process went for you
Sure.
with these funds, whatever it is, in person, touch and feel it.
We
It's
can
more of
do
a,
that.
hey, I need to do I need to check this box.
Sure.
Because this is our process that we use for our grant funding. Can you just, fill all this out and send it back to me? I think it needs to be in our policy that somebody does site visit.
And we can do that. And I love that
I don't
idea.
that's not going to solve the problem of, somebody going broke or whatever. It's just, I think that's a tough one to outguess.
I want to just respond to one thing that you said. There are ethical concerns about us helping people fill out grants to which we are then going to decide on winners and losers. So I want to caution against that. We've been down that road, and I don't want to go there.
Us
because
personally, or
anybody on county staff, it
Economic
is
Development Manager.
unethical to help people fill out our grant applications. So
when you say that, you're saying Yamhill County.
yes.
Okay.
Because what that does is that's coaching to the goal. This is what they're looking for. You didn't get there, let's do it. And that is a grave concern ethically, because the folks who don't get the grant can come back to us and say, you gave preferential treatment to somebody, and here we go. And that would not be pretty.
That's
On a different note, what do we do currently to advertise that we have this program?
So we sent, what did we do? I have to go back and think because it's been a minute. So press releases went to the newspaper, to, the newspapers in the area, and to all of the chambers of commerce, the business associations. I had quite a lengthy list. Do I remember exactly who was on the list? My apologies, I do not. However, tried to canvass as large of an area as possible. I think I might have even sent it to the cities, to city managers, so that maybe they could, kind of get it out to their planning department and places like that. Okay.
So you would include restaurant associations and,
Well,
I'm trying to get the folks who
yeah.
wouldn't normally know
Yeah.
about this. So if we did an outreach through, we've got Hispanic community who might not ever be picking up, that this is
Mhm.
going on
Mhm.
and make it, whether it's bilingual or whatever we're doing, give them a shot at, thinking of, the taco place, in Lafayette or the food carts,
Yeah.
food trucks. That's a up and running, going concern. It's a business that employs
Yeah.
people. And it needs to be shored up heavily.
Probably could have done a better job of getting that word out.
No, it's
I'm
not,
looking at
it's
it,
just a
but-
question. It's not a criticism.
No,
But it goes to my concern about how I don't think most people know that we do this. So, and that has been a concern that we've expressed in the past too, is, for the businesses in Sheridan or the city of Yamhill that don't necessarily have an association they belong to or a chamber, how do they know?
Right.
They don't read the newspaper. They don't interact with their city government on a regular basis.
Mhm.
So it seems like in my view, if we're going to continue down this structure with this structure, then we need to build in a budget for Joya to be able to market this program. Otherwise, it feels like we're going to continue to have the same issues with the same people coming back to the same trough of money. And now we're going to have a situation where 100% of them have received money, and we're not going to feel great about that either.
Yep.
So I think you need to have, as part of your budget, a marketing strategy for this program where you're pulling every single business license in the county, which you can easily do.
Mhm.
So you will know every single business owner
Mhm.
and send them something. Send them a postcard. Say, hey, we're doing this program. In case you didn't know about it, here it is. Here's what's involved. Here's when it opens. And that way, every single person who owns a business in this county is aware of it. I just feel like if this is the route we're going to go and stick to this program, I would feel better about that, because at this point, I feel like there's an equity issue happening in terms of access, equal access. I just don't think most people know about it. And we're seeing it come through in the results.
I agree. But we're also getting going here too. I think it'll self-advertise itself, but I think that's a great idea to send out postcards.
And if you look at the bulletin, the West Valley Bulletin, people are more likely to read that because it contains not only news, but it's very community focused.
Yeah.
And those are folks who would
Yeah.
need to know, and they're not gonna read the newspapers.
Right. And I believe that you have to pay to put something in there, if I'm not
It's
mistaken.
very minimal.
Okay.
It's really.
But,
And it was sent, it was sent,
It was sent to the bulletin.
yes.
But the bulletin is not even like considered, that I think would be money well spent.
but it
Mhm.
doesn't, even if you have to buy an ad,
Mhm.
that's fine.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is
I
build
agree
a
with you
budget for
there.
you to be
Yeah.
able to market what's
And-
going on.
And
Yeah, no, I don't think this is an issue.
Okay.
there are
But
funds
we did,
available,
ta-
but they're
we did talk
allocated to
about
other
that.
things.
Well, first of all, was a discussion like a month ago, but second, we did talk about the size of that budget. And I remember saying, this doesn't seem adequate for what we were envisioning needing to happen. If you send a postcard or a mailer, it's quite expensive. And I think it would have exhausted the budget if not went beyond that. So
Well, we can revisit
I
that
do
and
think we
see.
need to, if this is the policy decision today, then I think we need to revisit that piece.
Agreed.
And
It doesn't have to be huge, but it's necessary, in my view, if we're going to make this more equitable.
And if we're talking about having more applicants, I think we also need to talk about how much more money we want to put into the fund to be giving out. Because if we talk about how many businesses are just in McMinnville, that's 1,500 or 1,600 roughly. That's a number that's been tossed around. So if we look across the county, if we're going to communicate with 1,600 here, I don't know, 1,200, 1,400 in Newburgh. I'm thinking, how many applications will we get in and how then, do we give that money out? And I'm not trying to throw a wrench into the conversation here, but just, we had 42 applicants this time that completed. And we only had 7 grants to give out. So now we're talking about bringing many more applicants in, which is, I agree, is a wonderful opportunity. But are we also setting ourselves up for, once again, not having enough funds to support those businesses that we want to support? And I love the idea of letting everybody know. I think it's really important to notify all of them, but our funds are very limited. And if we got, I don't know, 500 applications and we have, 15 grants to give out, I'm throwing numbers out. I don't know how many we would get. It raises a concern for me with that. But I agree with you. We need to get the word out. It's just going to be a small bucket of money with possibly many applicants for that small bucket of money.
It just makes it more competitive.
It does make it more competitive. You're
Nothing
right.
wrong with that.
No,
True.
I actually
Good
like
point.
that. Other
Okay,
than
yeah,
it's
yeah.
a whole lot more work to try to start sifting through them all. But maybe there's like a hybrid approach here where I can't remember who mentioned it, but the having the sending the money to the chambers and letting them, but maybe if you tweak that a little bit and actually let the chambers filter part, and then the chambers send Joya. So it's like pre-clearing some applications, and then Joya gets the second say, and then the recommendation comes before us from Joya.
I'm going to speak as the former CEO of a Chamber of Commerce, that I don't know I would feel comfortable with that.
Okay.
And the only reason I say that is because it's placing the chamber in a position, and
So you guys don't want to pick winners and losers?
nope.
Interesting.
Well, so chambers of commerce live and die by the number of members that they have and
No,
the
I get
membership
that.
payment.
Yep.
And so I don't want to speak for the current person who is in the position, but if it were me, I would be concerned about
Okay.
that. So,
fine.
but
Just an idea.
I think there's a lot we can look at moving forward with this. And really, I've learned a lot going through this process, and we will, work on a process for next year that will be more fluid and hopefully not have these kinds of concerns.
Yep.
There may be different concerns that come up because you can't know what you don't know, and you can't foresee.
At least I
what
guess
could-
if everybody knows the direction of the conversation we're having, if somebody has concerns or whatever, I'm more than wide open to have that conversation, and in another month, we can change the policy.
And also, I would love to have the cities at the table. The cities know what's going on in their cities.
True.
I saw some
Yeah.
on the committees. I saw some city managers. I think Lafayette city manager was on there.
So there were city managers, there were chambers of commerce, and
Planning director,
planning
Heather.
director. So there was a variety of a mix.
Yep.
And what I did was each applicant was reviewed by 2 separate reviewers. And I asked every reviewer to tell me in advance if they knew any of the applicants, so that they would not be assigned to that particular applicant so there was no conflict of interest. And in fact, one of the reviewers contacted me and said, "Oh my gosh, I didn't recognize the name of the company, but I know the owner." And so I was able to switch them over to, move it around, but yeah.
And I guess as I'm spitballing ideas here, this is nothing against the committee. This is us just giving wrong parameters or not, double checking our parameters of what we like as a board, because things change over the years, I think, or we just didn't have time to address it.
Well, I think this goes back 5 years. I mean, since 2019 and in 2020, when the CARES Act money started rolling out. We've had bits and pieces of this conversation over the past 4 years that I've been here. And really haven't decided on a clear path forward. So I think that's really the point of this discussion is, okay, where are we at? Because we're almost done with ARPA. We're done with CARES. We're almost done with ARPA. Now, hopefully we don't have to do that again. But now where do we go with this kind of grant program?
Yep.
And so it's not and frankly, this was a concern when we had SEDCOR too, because SEDCOR was so focused on, first of all, just the traded sector, but second, there was the same concern over it's the same folks coming back to the table, right? They're serving the same folks who are connected, and there wasn't a broad enough outreach, and there was no outreach for our Main Street businesses. So this is even a conversation and frustration that we were having back when SEDCOR was with the county. I'm not scared about having 1,000 applicants. I actually think that's great. I think that because it serves multiple purposes. And it sort of checks that box for making sure that we are connecting with our small businesses, and that they're aware that we're here to be part of that discussion.
I agree.
So, I still think workforce training is worth investing in. I think it's a big bang for the buck. I actually think the counties that help fund their GIS programs are doing the same thing. GIS crosses so many levels of needs, from planning and development to cities and how they plan for housing, special districts, direct business impacts, public safety, our agricultural community. Everybody uses this service. And so, and we've seen recently some significant challenges with our GIS program. So I think that counties that use some of this money for GIS as well is smart. I mean, that's a big bang for the buck. So there's other ideas. I don't know. It doesn't sound like we necessarily have consensus over how we want to proceed going forward with policy.
I think at this point, we've had a good enough conversation that we're going to get input back from chambers, and we can start, that can kind of guide us in the direction we're going to go. I still think that we still have it. The general outlay is how we're doing it here.
And I think because the definition of economic development, as had a conversation with our county council yesterday, and I said, what are the parameters? And he went like this. It was like, well, they're pretty wide and pretty broad. So I think it's really going to be incumbent upon the board to make decisions, but because we have that latitude, we don't have to be narrowly boxed into, this is the only thing we do. Kind of like, as you mentioned, SEDCOR, it was traded sector. Now we're looking at infrastructure, nonprofits, the cities, the chambers, the small businesses. And I think we just need to be open to that.
Yeah. I like seeing not necessarily equipment, but I like seeing the structure that keeps these businesses more efficient to get more product out the door. That's what I like seeing.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm trying to pull this together into, is there consensus about a structure? And I'm sort of hearing different things. Maybe we don't have consensus at this point. So you're fine with continuing the grant program as we have done it, the 125,000 with 3 different tiers,
Yep.
but with an expanded marketing
Yep.
program
Yep. Love the postcard idea.
to connect with literally every business that has every business license,
Yep.
and owner. And then based on the response, we adjust the need.
Yeah.
Okay, and then what about for this year currently?
I'm ready to, I have a couple adjustments to my list. Did you bring another secondary recommendation with you today after we met?
I did not, but I can
Okay, no, and
certainly, I
that's
know what
fine.
we talked
I
about.
just want to
so
make sure
can-
if you were going to present, or I could present, I guess, my own recommendation of what I believe. So, if we start at the top
Well,
of this,
Before we get there though.
oh, okay.
I want to make sure I'm clear on like the package. Policy wise. So you,
Well,
your
like-
feeling is,
I'd like to be, I do think that's an important component. Up and running company is basically just needing a cash infusion for something that would be
Mhm.
ongoing and business efficiency. I'm looking at workforce development for those that are hard to employ. And that would be nonprofits that are doing that work demonstrably, not give a nonprofit money and it evaporates into a black hole and we don't have anything to show for how many people did you train, how many people entered your program, and how many people are employed. I'm thinking of two right now that can answer those questions to the affirmative. So I want to be really clear about it's not this pie in the sky, you're a nonprofit, here's a check. So to me, it's workforce development of the hard to employ.
Mhm.
okay, so what I'm hearing is continuing with this grant structure, but adding in nonprofits.
They're already.
Yeah, they're already,
added.
that's,
I thought we said,
I think basically between what me and Mary at least just said, it stays the same because you have
Stays
equipment,
all
you
the
have workforce development, you have training, you have those different categories
Right.
already, so.
They're already in there, and I think that would be, I would have a jaundiced eye towards picking those. You would
Just, I would
obviously
be, yep,
look at those, and I think that's the
I'd be
beauty of.
equipment or what,
Right.
yeah, that's right. Which there's nothing wrong with.
the only nonprofit, Unidos?
You need those, yeah.
Is a nonprofit that has been to us before.
Okay, I think we need some clarity around that because I want to say that we said no to nonprofits for one of these grants. So we need to have some clarity around that. I remember having that discussion.
We were thinking no based on prior
Grants given.
prior grants.
And I think
No,
we're
but
gonna
it was
get
the
other feedback
status.
too that might guide us in the next month to where I don't know that we need to finalize the direction we're headed right now.
No, we don't need to finalize. I just want to make sure I'm understanding clearly.
Okay.
Okay, so you would support nonprofits in any grant category?
If it came under the category of job training.
So startups would technically not be traded sector in the startup category. So that would probably eliminate a not-for-profit, I would think.
Yeah.
Because I would think. So, so they would either apply for the strategic investment fund or the,
Competitive,
yes,
the workforce training?
yeah, they would
Okay,
apply
well
for
then,
for the regular grant. The small grant, they would apply for the small grant. Yeah. So the strategic investment fund is a $50,000 grant. The startup is 25,000 and the second one, the one I just said, is also 25,000. It's 50. We separated them out.
okay, so what was the point you were making about nonprofits? I'm gonna make sure I'm clear.
What I'm looking at is, can you specifically point to job training with an outcome, with a deliverable? And if you've come to the well before, that would disqualify you, or at least put you pretty far down in the ratings. I don't want
Yeah.
to go a lot of times it's the bigger nonprofits who are
Mhm.
very adept at this.
Mhm. Yes, and we can certainly call out in the application and in the different categories that, must be a not-for-profit, focused on workforce development. We could do that. I don't know that we cannot. So if you wanted to call out a specific grant specifically for workforce development, for disadvantaged or hard to employ, you could do that. And there are organizations that are doing that work within the county.
Right. If you look at MV advancements,
Correct.
anyhow, just something to think about.
No, we can add that to that.
Okay. Um. From my perspective, this still feels very awkward and like we're going to continue to have these concerns because we're picking winners and losers. And fundamentally, I just don't like that function of this role. I would like to see more focus on workforce training and development. I think we have some significant opportunities here in the county. So whether we incorporate that in the future,
Do that.
but for this year, I do think that we need to continue our consideration of what we asked for. So, Kid, if you want to make a recommendation,
Yes. I
Okay.
will.
Commissioner Johnston, I mean,
I recommend under the startup grant, 25,000, we actually do two. One will be Pure Light for 25,000. The second would be motor control for 25,000. Under the small business grant, I would just change one. Chehalen Valley Dance Academy, we would be removed. And we would put Alumbra Sellers in that one. And then we go down to strategic investment grant of the 50,000. We cut that down to 25,000 and remove Unidos and replace it with Miss Hannah at 25K.
okay, and that gets us to the 125.
I think so.
Joya, do you need Commissioner Johnston to repeat that? Or
I've
do you
got
have
it.
his? Okay.
I've got it. I wrote it down. Thank you.
First and foremost, when I made this list was the ones that I've put on here have not received a grant.
Right.
So I had to go quite a ways down the list and then start going through individual applications to kind of pick and choose. But the biggest thing was no, they haven't received grant funds in the past.
Great.
Knowing full well, if you keep doing that, we eventually will run into a problem in years in the future when I'm long gone. So that's why I still say, don't make it like get rid of an application because they filed before, but it needs to be rated differently so we can get some of these other ones to start floating to the top. And I think the outreach will help with the postcards.
You could also put a timeline on that. You could say if you've received funding in the last 5 years or
Yep.
6 years or whatever, you could do it that way as well.
And I'm sure there's a lot of ideas that are going to float in the next month from different chambers around the area.
Okay, so since we are technically in a work session, we can add that as an agenda item, if we want to vote today. Is that your intention?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
Right now? Okay. All
I would
right.
Move that we accept Commissioner Johnston's recommendations.
All right. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. All opposed, same sign. Okay, motion passes. So that takes this year sort of off the table.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. for that.
And I think we have some consensus over policy. I
Mhm.
think there's still some concerns, but at least somewhat of a roadmap of how we can make this a little bit more comfortable for commissioners in terms of our goals. And again, it's tough listening to how the sausage is made sometimes, but this is really a culmination of a lot of concerns over the past 4 to 5 years with this huge influx of money being pushed out for grants and internal changes that we've made and internal concerns that we've had over different things. So yeah, we can follow up too and see if this is something that we can maybe put into a board policy for going forward.
I've taken some
language.
notes
Mhm.
and I'll work on a policy that includes those things, and then we'll go through the conversation and the channels.
Thank you
Okay.
very much for
Any
working
further
on this.
questions or discussion for Joya?
No, thank you.
Okay, I'll get
Thank
Scotch
you.
Joya.
notified and I'll
Appreciate
care
it.
of
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the conversation.
Sorry, just organizing my notes here. Just a second. All right. That brings us, so we're done with our work session, and that brings us to our consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Item H is old business. There's nothing there. I is other business. I1 is consideration of authorizing County Council Christian Burnish to sign the final participation forms and related documents to include Yamhill County in the proposed national opioid settlement agreement between litigating parties and Kroger Company, settling and releasing all claims against the named party arising out of federal multi-district opioid litigation. And I will move approval. Does anyone have questions for Christian on this item?
No.
Nope.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. I2 is
Thank
consideration.
you.
Oh,
Oop, oop.
thank you. I2 is consideration of approval of an engagement agreement between Yamhill County and PRH Labor Law for outside legal services. I will move approval of this item. Is there questions, concerns for Christian?
None.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. I3, consideration of approval of an intent to award a construction contract to Hicks Striping and I think it's supposed to say curbing LLC for the 2024 Highway Striping Services Project in the amount of $359,610.35. And this is to stripe 286 center line miles and 204 fog line miles. And there were 2 bidders, and this is the low bidder by quite a bit. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Any questions?
I have a little bit of information and just kind of prep yourselves for what's coming. But
Okay.
so this is expensive, and we're finally getting to the point where we need to come up with a different plan, whether it's we're buying the equipment to do it in-house.
Okay.
Marion County's been treating us really well, but all these contractors, there just is not a lot of them out there, and they know it. So
I mean,
some of
the
it's
other
paint
good
costs,
ones.
but a lot of it is just supply and demand to get these companies to come do it. So we're just over the next year or so, be prepared. There might be a fairly large ticket item coming for a piece of equipment to do possibly our own work.
What
I
does
just
that
don't
look
want it to
like
be a surprise.
dollar figure wise? What
I
does that
have
look?
no idea.
Okay, because this comes before us every year, so.
Yeah.
Is it one machine?
One machine, truck, paint tanks. You see them, Marion County's
Yeah.
got one.
Well, at
There's
this
different
rate,
sizes too.
I mean, I feel like you could do a couple, 2, 3 projects and you'd pay for it.
Yep.
You need the employees to do it too.
Sure.
So Mark's gonna kill me for bringing that up. I hope he's not listed right now. Okay. Moving on.
Okay, moving on. Did you have a motion?
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Man, I'm in the doghouse with Greg now.
Okay, item I4 is consideration of approval of an intergovernmental agreement between Yamhill County Sheriff's Office and McMinnville Water and Light to provide tower rental space for McMinnville Water and Light at an initial rate of $1,133.16 per year, subject to a 3% annual adjustment effective upon full execution through June 30th of 2034. And we do have the sheriff here today in case there's any questions, but this is for the High Heaven Tower for Mac Water and Light to plug into.
I have just very easy questions. Just looking towards the future, whatever our radio communication system will look like in the future. I just want to make sure this won't hinder something that we may end up doing, like taking up extra space that we might need or.
No, and I apologize. I didn't look again to remind myself how tall the High Heaven Tower is, but it is,
I think it's
I
like
want to say
200.
180 or 200 and some feet.
Yeah.
This is to mount 2 4-foot antennas on the tower itself for the radio system that Mac Water and Light is building for their staff. As part of this process, because we also lease space to ODOT on the same tower, our agreement with ODOT requires them to do an analysis of any potential interference with the new antennas, and there is none. Our consultants as well have reviewed it, and there's no potential that it's going to interfere with the county radio system. It just gets the elevation that they need to be able to get radio communications on the backside of the watershed.
But room wise,
We have plenty of space.
okay, that's all I got.
Any further questions? Okay, I will move approval of item I4. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Right, motion passes. Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, item J is public hearings. There's nothing today. And that brings us to announcements.
Commissioner Johnston and I were at former Commissioner Rick Olson's memorial service yesterday. A lot of folks from the community, people who had served with him in the past as mayor and as commissioner were there. And it was really a lovely tribute, both from the fire service perspective and from his military honors. So it was a really nice service. The other thing is there's going to be a final closing for Stratus Village through the Housing Authority. And that's going to be in the first week of August. And also we have a draft agreement with Housing Authority and with HHS. There's going to be an OHA grant, which is going to fund 10 of those units, behavioral health support services. The tribe has 20 units that their project is going to allow them to reserve, and they've given them $7 million. So there really is, we've made a contribution, I believe $100,000 with ARPA money, and OHA grant will pay for the behavioral health component for those units that we will have, which will be great. Oh, and I did want to mention, I believe Commissioner Johnston, you have met with Congresswoman Salinas' field rep, Brandon Jordan, and I met with Brandon. We talked about a number of different things, including what used to be called earmarks, but the community project funding. I believe the Congresswoman has 15, and I gave him a laundry list of what we could use the money for, and he was very supportive of a lot of the things that I mentioned.
Thanks.
I think you told him the same things we needed.
Okay.
I was just gonna go over the parade list real quick, and I just wanted to touch again on the Amity one, just to make sure, because that one's new, and I
Mhm.
want to make sure it gets broadcasted out,
Mhm.
make sure everybody, if they have time to if they're in that area, go hit the Amity Parade. I know I have ambassadors that we're going to take through the Newburgh parade that day, but
Yeah.
I feel bad because I want to try to hit all of those. But boy, if you're in the area, go hit Amity Parade. They got some good stuff going on out
Yeah.
there.
And there's a park sort of fun day after the parade, so
Yeah.
they'll
Yeah.
still be down there. So Derby Days Parade was wonderful, as usual last
It's
weekend.
the shortest, longest parade ever.
Shortest, longest parade ever.
It's
Very
long
well
for how short it
attended.
is.
Yeah. But always a great time. And then obviously the fair opens next week. It will be my honor to open the fair on Wednesday, and I don't know if we have a special guest joining me, but we may. So that'll be a great time on Wednesday. And then, as you mentioned, the parade's this weekend. And Lipstick meeting was yesterday. I want to just point out that I think it's pretty special. I think that Yamhill County has this type of committee that brings all of the public safety sort of organizations together, as well as the nonprofits that serve those individuals. And we meet every quarter and we talk about public safety in the county as a whole, and bounce ideas off of each other and talk about concerns and give positive and frankly negative or critiquing responses that we get from the community. One of the biggest things that we're facing is the rapid increase in DUIs that we've had in the past 5 years. The sheriff reported yesterday that, and we don't even have all the numbers. We have bits and pieces, the county, we have McMinnville, we don't even have Newburgh Dundee PD yet. And yet he's estimating that we've had about 2,000 DUIs in just the past 5 years. So we're going to start looking at who those people are, whether they live here or they're tourists coming in to maybe enjoy wine country or something like that, or to just, visit our events and they're getting behind the wheel. And so once we have that more granular data, I think that we will be in a better position to start to look at ways that we can combat some of that, because obviously we're losing lives. I don't remember this exact statistic, but it's several hundred lives that have been lost over the same time period. And so that's going to be a focus going forward. But again, I just think it's really special that Yamhill County has that group that comes together. And then I will be meeting with Representative Andrea Salinas in about a week, and we will be meeting with the sheriff, the DA, and our community justice director to talk about how Yamhill County plans to spend House Bill 4002 money. She's interested in learning about our plan and potentially looking at, sending more federal funding our way in terms of either as a support system for the plan or expanding what we've got going on. So it'll be interesting to see what she says in response in terms of federal dollars that might be available. And that's all I got. Anything further?
I just wanted to mention, we have the local alcohol and drug policy committee, which is required by statute. And we had some discussion about making DUI focus, and the sheriff pointed out that it's usually somebody has driven impaired 8 times before they're caught.
80.
80, yeah.
Yeah,
A lot.
and it's a lot. And the other thing is that typically what we're thinking is it's going to necessarily be somebody who's gone to a winery, and that isn't necessarily the case, which has been quite surprising because you would assume that. But it's really it's a tough one, but hopefully we'll be able to get a better understanding with some of these numbers, because
Yeah.
when we looked at it, we didn't have the McMinnville numbers yet.
Right. And I think they just got those,
Yeah.
but yeah, in terms of granular, also looking at, is it alcohol? Is it some other substance? And that's important too. So,
Right.
okay. Anything else for the good of the order? Nope. All right. If not, I will adjourn the Yamhill County Board of Commissioners formal session for July 25th, 2024. It is 11:30. Thank you.